tonight, Monday Night Raw takes place from inside the WWE ThunderDome in Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. Of course, it's the first episode of Monday Night Raw to take place from inside the new WWE ThunderDome in St. Petersburg, Florida in Tropicana Field. Now, I mentioned this before in the other Raw preview, actually really disappointed with the new, I put that in quotation marks because it's not, it's the new WWE ThunderDome. It's exactly the same. I suppose maybe we got our hopes up a little bit too much. It felt like we were going to see something different, revamped, bigger, better. Obviously, they're in a bigger venue with more seating and the potential for live fans to come in. But nevertheless, it looks like it's going to be exactly the same as the ThunderDome before, which is disappointing. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit different. And look, they're in a different setting and a different venue with a lot more possibilities. So I would have hoped to have seen the WWE ThunderDome, but, you know, just times 10, just bigger, do something more grand. And considering WWE's ability to do that in the past when it comes to production and stadiums and arenas, I felt like they were going to do something special. Of course, time will tell when it comes to that. I'm sure they could probably do that for maybe TLC on Sunday and at the Royal Rumble in January, but it's something I wanted to mention. But what we're going to talk about in this video is the WWE ThunderDome field trip for the FireFly Fun House this week, because last week Bray Wyatt announced that this week that all the puppets and characters of the FireFly Fun House are going to be inside the WWE ThunderDome at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. So what does this mean? It's very interesting, isn't it? Because I was thinking about this when I saw this announcement was made and I saw them hyping it up on the adverts on SmackDown and over the last few days, over the weekend, saying the FireFly Fun House, all the characters are coming to the ThunderDome. That's nothing new, is it? Because we've seen that on several occasions. We've seen several backstage interviews or promos by people, and we see the puppets of the FireFly Fun House in the background. We've seen the FireFly Fun House puppets at the WWE Performance Center in the match against Braun Strowman at Money in the Bank. We've seen the FireFly Fun House puppets with John Cena at the WWE Performance Center for on SmackDown back before their match at WrestleMania. We've seen that on several occasions. So to say that this is going to be a big field trip and we're going to see these characters inside the WWE ThunderDome for the first time, it just doesn't really compute to me, because we've seen it. We've seen it several times. So unless they're going to do something more official, which is probably the area I think they're going to go in for this one, potentially we could see, I think, a scenario where an episode of the FireFly Fun House is actually hosted in the ring at the WWE ThunderDome. That would be really interesting. Again, how do they do that with the puppets? Because obviously someone needs to be operating them, and I'm pretty sure Bray Wyatt does all the voices for the majority of these puppets. So this would be a really difficult segment to do. Obviously, I know Monday Night Raw is live, but of course there's no fans in the arena, so that doesn't mean that it couldn't be a situation where they've taped the FireFly Fun House segment in the ring and it's just playback later on when the show is live. I could see a situation with that, but it's going to be certainly interesting, and I suppose it's the next step of this storyline feud with Randy Orton going forward. We know Sunday at TLC, the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, will be taking on Randy Orton. It's arguably the match I'm probably the most excited about. Yes, I'm really excited for Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles Tables, Ladders and Chairs match. Yes, I'm excited for Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns in the Tables, Ladders and Chairs match. Both stories have been very well done, and you look at the four competitors in those respective matches, oh my gosh, what an amazing match. I mean, the card actually for TLC is really, really strong, but just from a sheer curiosity point of view, this Randy Orton, the Fiend match on Sunday is really interesting to me for a variety of reasons. Let's get into them. Obviously, who's going to win this one? That's really interesting to me, because Randy Orton has had a fantastic year on WWE TV. He really has had a superb year. And his heel turn, when he turned on Edge back in January of earlier this year, feels like last year, of January earlier this year, and then ever since then, he has just been one of the best characters in WWE, arguably the top heel in the business, let alone in the WWE. The issue has been for Randy Orton over the last couple of months, especially during his feud with Drew McIntyre, is that he lost most of the time. Yes, he won the WWE Championship, and I think the plan was at that point to have Edge versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. We know those plans have changed. I think the plans for Edge versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania haven't changed, but the plans of having it be for the WWE Championship certainly have changed. During that whole feud with Drew McIntyre, all Randy Orton did was lose. He came out of that feud not looking too great. Obviously, he needs to build up some momentum at some point if he's going to be facing Edge in a featured match at WrestleMania. I know it's Randy Orton. I know people will say, but Randy Orton's bulletproof. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses. That is true to a certain extent, but you can't lose every match. You just can't, because this match against Edge is probably going to win that match too. So Randy Orton's record is going to be pretty damn terrible from the end of 2020 going into 2021. It's just not going to be that great. And I think looking at their match at TLC, is The Fiend going to do a job to Randy Orton? I would be very, very surprised. The Fiend has only lost to one man, that be Bill Goldberg, and that was a disgrace. That match should have never have happened in that way. If they're going to do the Fiend versus Goldberg match, the Fiend should have won. I know the plan was to have Goldberg versus Reigns at WrestleMania and the Fiend versus John Cena. Nevertheless, they could have found another way. They didn't have to have Goldberg, a 53-year-old man, destroy the Fiend in 3 minutes, one of the most promising characters in the last 5-10 years in WWE, and they... Luckily, Bray Wyatt was able to recover thanks to the grace of God and John Cena. Quite frankly, if John Cena hadn't have put over Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, then that would have been massive problems. So, the only one man to defeat the Fiend has been Goldberg, and I don't think Randy Orton will defeat the Fiend either. So again, Randy Orton comes out of that match on Sunday losing once again. That is an issue. That is absolutely an issue when it comes to Randy Orton and this feud with Edge. The only thing that could be interesting, I suppose, at TLC, we don't know the return timetable for Edge. I would assume it's not far off. We know that Edge versus Orton is happening at WrestleMania. That's in April. That's a long way off. That's what, 4 months, over 4 months away. So that's a long time for Edge still to recover. But I would assume we're probably going to see Edge back on TV probably towards the Royal Rumble time again, so towards the end of January. That isn't too far off. That is about a month or so off at this point. So given that that's a month off, you would think that Edge is going to be pretty close to returning anytime soon. If they wanted to protect Randy Orton in his defeat against The Fiend on Sunday, given that Bray Wyatt is now a babyface and therefore The Fiend is now a babyface, they would have Edge get involved in that match, surprisingly, distract Randy Orton, and The Fiend can win, and then The Fiend can go off and do his thing that he's going to do at WrestleMania. Whoever The Fiend is going to face, that's going to be interesting as well. Of course, there were rumours at one point that it was going to be The Fiend versus Edge, or The Fiend and Alexa Bliss versus Edge and Beth Phoenix. Looks like that probably isn't going to happen now. I would think at this point, considering the amount of time that they've put into this Edge versus Randy Orton feud, that we're going to have the payoff match at WrestleMania 37, regardless of where that is. So I don't see The Fiend facing Edge just yet, but it certainly, I think, is going to be a feud they do sometime down the line, considering The Fiend is now on Raw with Alexa Bliss. Going to be interesting as well to see if Alexa Bliss is back tonight. Of course, she missed last week's episode of Monday Night Raw. She's in LA with Charlotte Flair, filming a TV show with Devon Dudley, who's helping produce it. So, going to be interesting to see if she's back. I would assume she probably is back. Again, even if she isn't, look, the Alexa Bliss character, I've said this on multiple occasions, has been a huge shot in the arm when it comes to The Fiend. The Fiend, for me, and the Bray Wyatt FireFly Fun House character was in a bit of trouble, I think, and people might scoff at that and say, that's not the case, but for me, the character was in a little bit of trouble, not by any fault of Bray Wyatt, but I feel like the writers in WWE and that so-called creative team got into a really bad pattern when it came to Bray Wyatt and The Fiend, where every segment, every single week was just repeated. They kind of almost had run out of ideas of how to do a FireFly Funhouse segment or The Fiend segment. Every week, that FireFly Funhouse segment would be exactly the same. It would have no story to it. It would be no story progression. There'd be no linear storytelling there. And you'd come out of it going, that was great, but it didn't tell any story. It didn't progress any story. And this week-to-week storytelling, this week-to-week television was non-existent. And I understand that episodes of FireFly Funhouse can exist on their own, but you can't do that every week. Fans won't sit for it. Fans want to see, when they tune into any form of entertainment TV show, especially drama, they want to see some form of story progression every single week, and sometimes it got to the point where these episodes of the FireFly Funhouse didn't do that, and it was reminiscent of the Eater of Worlds character that Bray Wyatt previously had in WWE, where he would do these promos, he would come out and speak, and at the end of the segment, after 15 minutes, he would say, I have no idea what he said, and he didn't progress any story. And they kind of were falling into that trap slightly. That was an issue. And with this Alexa Bliss addition to the character, it's given it a massive shot in the arm. Now suddenly the FireFly Funhouse segments have meaning. They have a linear story every single week. They progress. What do they progress? They progress the relationship between Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss. And they progress the Alexa Bliss character, the transformation that she has into the Fiendess and the Fiend. I think it's fascinating and absolutely compelling. And it certainly, I would think, is something they're going to explore more going into WrestleMania next year. As far as plans for The Fiend right now and Bray Wyatt WrestleMania, it's up in the air. I mean, if you look at the characters on Monday Night Raw right now, who would he face? It's certainly going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting because I don't know. I don't know if I have the answer to that one. if the rumors are believed to be true, it would probably be Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre once again at WrestleMania. It's going to be Edge versus Randy Orton. So who does that leave the Fiend to face? Not many options. Unless, once again, if they're insisting on doing all these rematches from WrestleMania 36, maybe if they do actually have the match inside of the stadium, at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida, maybe they bring back John Cena and they actually do have the Fiend versus John Cena inside of a WWE ring, as was the plan last year. Maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe you could see the Fiend face off against someone like AJ Styles. There are options there, but it's going to be very interesting nevertheless. So in terms of this field trip tonight, I'm expecting it to probably have a FireFly Fun House segment in the ring that they've already taped. I don't know. Or we could obviously as well see a lot of interaction with the puppets backstage with various Raw superstars. Maybe we might even see Ramblin' Rabbit win the 24/7 championship. How great would that be? Ramblin' Rabbit beats Little Jimmy, something like that. I don't know. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the WWE ThunderDome field trip for the FireFly Fun House puppets tonight, along with Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about Monday Night Raw, NXT, SmackDown, AEW Dynamite, Impact Wrestling, all that fun stuff here on the channel. So get involved with the community below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.